Thanks for joining us today on Mormon Land, where we explore news in and about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm Managing Editor Dave Noyce. I oversee the Salt Lake Tribune's faith coverage. I'm joined again by Senior Religion Reporter Peggy Fletcher-Stack. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Dave.
We remind our listeners about another way to support Mormon Land. Just go to patreon.com, where, with a small donation, you can access transcripts to our podcasts and our complete newsletter. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/Mormonland. And if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram at mormon.land. Now for today's show. This nonpartisan Latter-day Saint group has called out President Donald Trump for continuing to spread the false narrative that the 2020 election was rigged, and for targeting those who have reported the truth about his electoral defeat that year. It has denounced the present federal administration's quest for greater power and Congress's unwillingness to act as a constitutional check against such executive overreach. It has opposed Trump's push for mass deportations. It has pleaded with Utah Senator Mike Lee, a fellow member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to cease his online bullying. It has encouraged reasonable reforms to reduce gun violence. It has even sued the Utah Legislature, accusing lawmakers of gerrymandering and undermining the will of voters in approving new congressional districts for the Beehive State. Given all that activity, to say that Mormon Women for Ethical Government has been quietly sitting on the sidelines would miss the mark. So what does this grassroots group, with thousands of Latter-day Saint followers, and with the stated goal of, quote, building a more peaceful, just, and ethical world, hope to accomplish during this time of U.S. political upheaval? Laura Lewis-Ayi, the organization's public relations manager, joins us today remotely to discuss that question. Laura, welcome.
Thanks, Dave.
Glad to have you with us. So let's just start with some basics for some of our listeners who may not know. What prompted a group of Mormon women to launch Mormon Women for Ethical Government back in 2017? And how has it evolved since then?
Yeah, so we were started by just women who had a trusted friendship. They were concerned about the division and polarization they were seeing in politics, and in the vitriol that they were seeing, and it also specifically started around the 2017 Muslim ban. And so Charlie Glenn, Mullins Glenn, she began a Facebook discussion group, and in a matter of days, that group grew from 10 members to thousands of members. And clearly she had met a need, right? She wanted to offer, and the need was this: we wanted to offer women, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint, a nonpartisan space to be able to collaboratively advocate, discuss issues, and advocate for others in the issues that they felt like were important, especially in a capacity for peacemaking, which was a different way of advocating than the ones that they were seeing, the way that they were seeing around them. And so we wanted to do civic engagement differently. We wanted to do politics differently. And everything that we did was going to be around four key core principles. That's nonpartisan, faithful, peaceful, and proactive. And then since that, in the last 8 years, MWEG has grown significantly. We started as a loosely based organization on Facebook, and now we're a sophisticated organization that advocates with members in all 50 states. We do advocacy on a federal level and also in several Western states. And additionally, we've had the opportunity to really shatter some myths about LDS women and amplify their voices. These are women who are informed. We are peacemakers, and we want to be involved. And what I love is one key pro-democracy organization said that MWEG members are the gold standard for advocacy. And I love that. I think that's so true. And the members are the core of everything that we do. We've had women put in front of members of Congress, facilitate testimony before regulatory boards, participate in interfaith discussions. We've been published. We are connected with local organizations and partnered with lots of national groups. Women in our organization run for office, and we give them the tools to do so. And basically, we're training a new generation of women who are going to advocate in policy in a completely different way, one that's void of coercion and contention.
And so you've mentioned some numbers, like how many members do you have, and how does somebody get to be a member?
Yeah, so we have almost 9,000 members across all 50 states. We have almost 40,000 followers, and many of these followers are deeply engaged with MWEG. And participating. Men are invited to follow, donate, participate. But if you go on our website, mormonwomenforethicalgovernment.org, you can go on there and sign up and get involved. And there's so many ways to get involved, both from an advocacy standpoint and also just to be educated on the different ways that women can be empowered in these political spaces. We are a truly nonpartisan organization. Our membership is from all across the political spectrum. So we're about 40% Republican, 34% Democrat, and 26% third party or independent.
So does the Central Committee, or whatever you call them, the leadership, do they have to approve local actions, or how are local actions? Like Dave was mentioning a bunch of things in Utah, but obviously if it's in every state, then there's local actions all over the place. How does that happen?
Yeah, so we're developing state leadership in 7 states. That's Utah, Idaho, Arizona, Nevada, California, Texas, and Kansas. And the state leadership, the volunteers there, we collaborate with the national leadership on issues that are important that fall within our advocacy areas. And then we also, like you mentioned, advocate on a national level. And so that's for everyone. All members in all 50 states can get involved with that advocacy as well.
Why Kansas?
That's where we have members, and we have amazing women who want to get involved there.
Nevada, Utah.
Women stepping up to the plate.
So Laura, who decides what official position MWEB takes on an issue when MWEB takes one? You know, they're listed on the website as official statements and positions. Who decides those?
Yeah, so we have an advocacy director, and of course our national leadership and board. But everything that we do falls within the issue areas of immigration, environment, children and family, and advancing democracy. And what's really important to us, if you were to ask 100 different members of MWEG, different women about a policy issue, you'd probably get 100 different responses. So we really do have varied political affiliation and ideologies, but we all come together around these core values and shared principles, and they have to do with our faith. They come from being, covenant women of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and disciples of Christ, and that's really what drives the issues that we advocate for.
So what, at the beginning, when you just, you said the Muslim ban was something that was big when you started, what were some of the original ethical issues MWEG wanted to address? And are they the same now? Are they different?
Yeah, so it did start around immigration, and really it was started by this group of women who were actually were responding to calls from our church leadership to engage with refugees and help refugees. And so this was coming from a very faithful part of them, that they wanted to get involved and help these immigrant populations. And so that was a core issue in the beginning. A major focus was that immigration. And then that has overlapped. That's one of our major issues today as well, is immigration, really finding faithful, nonpartisan, bipartisan solutions to promote peace We want to recognize individuals and avoid dehumanization, because we're all children of God. That's something that we believe to our core, and so that we knew that was an important issue for us. And then ethical government was also a really important issue from the beginning. That advancing democracy, avoiding corruption within our government, and that is definitely an important issue from the beginning, and it's something that continues to be a priority for us, and perhaps more urgently and dramatically today than ever before.
Mormon Land will be right back.
So the name of the group is Mormon Women for Ethical Government, and you're on a Mormon Land podcast. Has the group received any pressure to change the name Mormon?
Well, we talk about, because we're not, even though we are primarily members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we're not affiliated with or representing the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so we felt like we're separate. We're a separate entity. And so we've kept that name and that identity.
Okay. MWEG, as you've said and stressed, and you gave the partisan breakdown, is officially nonpartisan, but a number of its official stances have opposed Donald Trump policies. How do you answer critics who say the group is actually a left-leaning group masquerading as nonpartisan?
I think take a look at our website, we truly are an organization that is based on principles, and principles that we can all come together around. Principles about, for example, the Constitution as a sacred document that we want to uphold. And so I think it's important to remember that the things that we're seeing now, they're things that these are issues that we've seen for years on both sides of the aisle. And so these are issues that we're advocating for are not specific to any one party, but they're principle-based advocacy that when we want to hold our legislators accountable, and we want to advocate for, our positions that come from a place of faith and not from a political party. And that's represented in our membership. Like I said, the Republicans, Democrats, all different parties, but we truly come together around these issues and these principles of ethical governments and peace building.
Do you monitor members who say they're doing stuff in the name of MWAG who might use harsh language or something that you wouldn't advocate, you wouldn't support?
So
have you had
this is
trouble with that?
Well, so MWAG is we have two parts to it. We have the advocacy part, but we also have the education part. And that's something that we really emphasize is the peace building portion. And so we are getting new members joining almost every single day. And this might be their first time advocating for issues or getting involved civically in a public space. And so what our job is to educate them and give them the peace building tools that maybe they haven't had to develop up until this point, but they have the desire to. That's what our one of the foundational principles that we're built upon is peace building. And so we'll continue to provide those tools and that education to our members to allow them to effectively advocate in a way that is peace building.
So you don't call them out, or if they don't do that,
I think it's something that we're constantly striving for, or as an organization, and we're trying to empower women and give them the tools necessary. But obviously, these are women that are going. These are our individual members have a variety of viewpoints, and we're just trying to really come together around those shared principles and values, like I talked about.
Okay, so again, I think you've mentioned a couple of, but what are the religious principles, not just the ethical principles, that undergird MWAG?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I talked about was just that we're all children of God, and that we have we, as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we've covenanted to mourn with those that mourn and, and comfort those that stand in need of comfort. And so I think it all comes around how we want to be disciples of Jesus Christ and how we want to show up in the world and advocate in ways. I wanted to share this this quote with you. I think that is really, really great. It's from Elder Patrick Kieran, and he said, do we fear the world more than we shape it? Do we let our anxieties prevent us from making a difference? Do we spend more time hiding from society's flaws than fixing its problems? Society is not something that just happens to us. It is something we help shape. The main thing is to engage, dialogue, bridge, and interact with people of all sorts. Unless we participate, we lose our ability to both influence the world and learn from it. And so I think that quote really encapsulates a lot of the principles, like the religious principles that we hold dear, that we want to utilize in our advocacy efforts.
That all sounds great, but what about like serious evil? I mean, like people being so mistreated, playing nice with people like that. It seems like you need to be stronger.
Mm-hmm. I think our women are strong. I think these are women who
language. Do they use strong language? Do they,
Yeah, I think these are, it's using. How do I want to say this? There is a tension, right, to be ambassadors of peace that transcend partisanship, and on the one hand, but also hold these ideals and these principles that are really important to us, and try and advocate. And I really do think that our women, I mean, if you just look at the membership, these are women who are making an incredible difference in the world in maybe small and simple ways, but they're making a difference in their communities. They're running for office. They are calling out evil, and they are standing for principles of truth. And so we recently, I'll tell you a story. We recently had gathered together hundreds of women, actually thousands of women, truly, from across the United States. We had a coalition called Women Building Peace, and we took these individual quilt squares where women wrote down messages for their congressional leaders, and women from all over the United States gathered together in their communities, and they stitched these messages together. And then we took those quilts to Washington and we delivered them to congressional leaders. We had over 60 quilts, thousands of quilt squares, women from representing women from all 50 states and their voices. And as we went and talked to and met with our senators and our legislators, they were so impressed, and they listened. This was something, these tangible, beautiful, visual, creative quilts with these messages that all centered around checks and balances and the Constitution, were messages that our legislators could not ignore. And we had some beautiful dialogue with them about upholding the Constitution and why that's important. And I feel like we are making a difference in our individual ways as we gather together through MWEG and amplify each other's voices as women, and do so in a peaceful, proactive way.
Yes, and we actually had a story on that at sltrib.com. People can read about that. I want to stay on the subject of influence and what differences are made. What other successes can MWEG point to? Places where its influence really made a difference.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, we have a two-part mission. It's to advocate for ethical government and to empower women. And so the empowering women portion of it, it's a little bit harder to measure and track, but let me tell you a little bit about that. So we have a remarkable track record of helping women via our op-ed lab to share their personal stories and perspectives via opinion pieces. And this year alone, MWEG members have published 69 pieces in papers across the country. We know that there's a correlation between women who participate in MWEG having increased capacity to deal with conflict and act with confidence as peacemakers. That's something that we've been able to measure and track. And MWEG members have a higher score on the Principled Citizen Index. And so this includes a high civic knowledge and engagement, cross-ticket voting, commitment to principles over partisanship, and a commitment to uphold the rule of law and constitutional values. And we currently have one of the only high-functioning cross-partisan advocacy communities left in the nation. This is really important. Our membership is pretty evenly divided, like I said, in terms of party affiliation, but we exist in harmony with one another, and we're able to work collaboratively on specific policy issues. So we really are, breaking those norms in the way that we advocate, and that's different. That it's unexpected, but it really is effective. And then on the advocacy front, two examples that I can give you are the Electoral Count Reform Act. It was passed in 2022, and the Child Tax Credit Extension, which was recently included in the reconciliation bill. And the Electoral Count Reform Act was a bipartisan effort. It was to establish procedures for the counting of votes following the presidential election. And MWEG was one of the only, if not the only, grassroots organization that participated with a cross-partisan group of individuals and other organizations to lobby for this. So we've been working with multiple faith organizations over the last 2 years to extend the child tax credit, and it was just included in the bill that was passed this week. So those are just a couple of examples of the ways that we've been able to effectively advocate. And I think it's something, like you were saying, Peggy, it's different, and it seems like, is this really making a difference? But it is, and it's doing it in a new way that we feel is really important as disciples of Jesus Christ, that we advocate for principles that are important to us and policies that come from our faith, but we do it in a bridge building and a cross-partisan way. And I feel like that is truly the most lasting change that you can have, is when it's done in that way.
So the new Pope Leo, seems to be speaking up about social justice a lot. He has spoken about Ukraine and Russia. He's spoken about immigration. Do members of MWEG think the LDS Church could do that without seeming partisan? Just say, I don't know, war is bad, something like that?
Well, I can in no way speak for the LDS Church, but what I can say is that as MWEG is a nonpartisan organization of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, those are things that we are able to, effectively advocate for, and those are things that we can speak to and stand for.
Well, I think you've already pretty much answered this, but would MWEG like to see the church speak out more on these broad social issues that are big, not partisan, but, big issues?
I think that MWEG, we feel that we're an effective advocacy organization, and we that we uphold and sustain our leaders and the principles that the gospel of Jesus Christ teaches us, and then we're able to take those beautiful principles of that we're taught in the scriptures and taught through our Constitution and taught by our leaders, and then take those and advocate in the world.
Laura, you explained some of the core issues that have united MWEG and that MWEG tries to address. It does not appear that MWEG has issued any kind of official statement on, say, the war in Ukraine or Gaza or the recent fighting in Iran. I have just a question. Why not? Since one of the group's declared goals is to build a more peaceful world. So
our four main advocacy areas, like I said, are the the environmental stewardship, for advancing democracy, children and families, and immigration. And so outside of those four main advocacy areas, we don't take a stand. specific policy issues. And we feel like we are very effective within those four advocacy areas, and we're really able to come together around those issues. And like I mentioned, our membership has a lot of different ideas and opinions about a range of policy issues. But when we're able to come together around the advocacy areas I mentioned, then we're powerful and we're effective advocates in the policy sphere.
So finally, what would you like our listeners to know about MWAG that we haven't asked?
Oh, I would just like to extend an invitation to your listeners to get involved with MWAG and to check us out. You can check us out on Instagram, Mormon WAG, or you can go on our website, mormonwomenforethicalgovernment.org. And I invite you to join us you can both in the education piece, where we can teach you about how to get involved in the legislative process and advocate for the issues that are most important to you personally, or on our advocacy side, if you want to join us in our advocacy areas and taking a stand on any of those areas, then we would invite you to join us in that. But know that MWAG is a group of thousands of women across the nation. We're deeply dedicated to our faith, but also want to get involved, want to make a difference in our community and the world. And I believe that the women of MWAG really, truly are making a difference and changing the world as a result.
Well, Laura Lewis Agee, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it being here today.
And thanks to Peggy Fletcher Stack.
Always a pleasure.
And to our producer, Chris Samuels. We remind our listeners that they can keep up on all the happenings in about the church by subscribing to the Salt Lake Tribune's free Mormon Land newsletter. Just go to sltrib.com to sign up, and we'll talk again next time on Mormon Land.